Taylor Dahl and Mia O'Brien.
This is Helmets and Heels.
Driven by Tire Outlet.
Brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans on 1010XL.
Well, ladies, we are fresh off of the AFC and NFC championship games. And surprise, surprise, the Chiefs are headed to the Super Bowl. Little maybe surprise on the 49ers. If you were watching that game start to finish. I feel like people who picked it up in the second half were probably like, what in the world is going on? The Lions are up 24-7 on the Niners. But let's start with the Chiefs and the Ravens. Mia, I know you guys have talked about it on XL Primetime. How is it that Todd Monken only dialed up 6 runs for the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens running backs? How is that possible?
Contrary to what some of my colleagues on that program have suggested, I don't think Todd Monken was vying for a head coaching job, trying to show off to the world that he was some sort of genius. I just think, for whatever the reason, and despite all the metrics that suggest if there's any way you're going to penetrate that Chiefs defense, it's on the ground. We saw that week 1 of the NFL season, that Thursday night game, when the Detroit Lions were running for 5 yards a clip. Despite all those metrics suggesting that the run game may be your only avenue to success because of how good that secondary is, he said, we're going to take our chances with them. And we would rather test Trent McDuffie than Chris Jones. And on paper, I would probably say that Chris Jones is the more formidable of the two, but watching ball, it's reality that L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Mike Edwards, what those guys have been able to do in the back end in Kansas City over the last 2 to 3 years has been nothing short of remarkable, especially given that so many of those guys are homegrown. Sneed was a 3rd-round pick, and so that's what I think happened. For whatever the reason, they decided that this was the better gamble, and that did not pay off.
No, it certainly did not.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It doesn't make any sense because I feel like on both accounts, when you look at the strengths of both teams, it's the opposite. And I feel like one of the things you talk about all season too, which we talked about when it comes to the Jaguars, is consistency. And when you have something that is successful, as in the Ravens run game for the season in entirety, and you abandon it in the conference championship game, it's just wild to have 16 rushing attempts, half of what the Kansas City Chiefs had in that game, when that is what is supposed to take you to that next level, and that's what's been able to help you be successful and then opening up other situations. And to just abandon it almost completely is just, there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the Chiefs' defense was the star of the show. You can talk about how great Mahomes is, and he is, and certainly Travis Kelce, his greatness as well. But at the end of the day, I think the reason the Chiefs won is because their offense didn't score a point in the second half, but they didn't have to because the defense was so incredibly talented. And they dialed up the blitzes over and over again, and that got to Lamar Jackson, certainly. And the fact that the Ravens also had the 8 penalties for 95 yards, you're not going to win a lot of championship games with those kinds of numbers. But the Chiefs knew, keep the ball away from Lamar. That is the key, certainly, to this game, in addition to blitzing him a ton. And at halftime, they had the ball 20 minutes and 39 seconds. Yeah. The Chiefs did. The Ravens had it 9 minutes and 21 seconds. Just at halftime, I feel like that was kind of, the not just the biggest story, but it was the smartest thing that the Chiefs did.
The lack of a response to all the blitzes that Steve Spagnuolo was dialing up to was fascinating to me. If they're blitzing, if it's hot, you got to get the ball out quickly. You got to abandon the pocket quickly. I don't care how good your offensive line is. If they're bringing 5 or 6 and you only have 5, you need to get the ball out. And that's what was just so perplexing is okay, maybe the game plan dictated and then you fell behind that. So you take the two, marry them together, and you're like, okay, Lamar needs to throw the ball. Fine. Okay, cool. Why is he standing back there for 6, 7, 8 seconds? Yeah. I understand there are those that are now questioning his processing ability, but I understand also that in this new iteration of Lamar, he's not supposed to run quite as much, but something's got to give. Yeah. Does it not? Just based on what the defense is giving you.
Well, and it was interesting, too, because the week before, I felt like the first half, and I remember tweeting it, they are all over Lamar Jackson, but their halftime adjustment switched everything, and I don't think they touched Lamar in the second half in the divisional round. They could not figure it out this last week, and that goes to, that attests to what you just said of Kansas City's defense being the winner, the major winner in this game. Were you guys surprised that it was a 17-10 final, or were you expecting it to be lower or higher scored?
It was definitely the under.
Yeah.
It was surprising.
I was surprised.
For sure. Yeah.
I didn't think fireworks necessarily. I didn't expect like 34-31 like we got later. But I would say, yeah, I thought the winner would certainly be 27 points, somewhere in there. So, yeah, I was shocked when we got to the end of the game being like, that's how this thing finished? I mean, for all the talk about, Mahomes and Lamar and all that stuff. Yeah, the week before, Taylor, what you're talking about, Peter King had a story of Lamar Jackson talking to Todd Monken at halftime and saying, all right, the Texans are sending more blitzes than they normally do. Like, according to analytics, they don't normally do this. So I've got to get the ball out faster. And so they kind of changed up the offense for the second half. It didn't. If they did that this game,
didn't work.
It sure didn't work, or it certainly didn't seem like it.
Well, and obviously the Chiefs saw that too. They saw how the Texans were succeeding in that, and they figured out a way to be able to do that for 4 quarters, and that's what got the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, and Mia, the other stat that I come back to, the Chiefs have scored consecutively 8 opening drives in postseason games. 8 games, 8 first drive touchdowns.
And
like that is unbelievable.
After they went 3 or 4 games without scoring on their opening, I think it was their opening drive, and perhaps in the first quarter.
In the regular season?
Yeah, in the regular season, like that stretch where they lost to the Raiders, which now on Christmas Day, which I know now they're pointing to that as like the turning point when they were like, we got to figure this out. And then not to mention, if you even go back to the victory over the Dolphins in Germany, they didn't score in the second half of that game either. And there was a stretch there as well where they just sat on leads that weren't even that insurmountable, just because their defense is a lot better than anyone gives them credit for. And, like my aunt was complaining to me last night. This is fantastic. Of course, classic New Jersey. Couldn't get over the fact that Isaiah Pacheco only makes $900,000 only, but still only makes $900,000 and essentially gets into a car crash once a week in an NFL football game. And Tommy DeVito is making more than $1 million. It's not fair. Well, how about the fact that Patrick Mahomes, and granted, greatest player on the planet right now, is making 40+ million, and rightfully so. But then you have Isaiah Pacheco, who I think is so equally important to the success of this offense, and especially in those stretches there where they were just kind of sitting on leads, but because they can run the ball and they have, they're opportunistic when it comes to third down, they've been able to close out games.
Yeah. Well, the NFL is crazy. Tommy Townsend, the punter, makes $2.6 million, right? Like, and yet Brock Purdy, he makes more than Brock Purdy does.
Yes, who makes $800K, yes.
Right, but it's all just structured based off of, obviously, when you get in the league.
Well, and if Kansas City wins again, it's just another name to the long list of the recent Super Bowl winners whose running backs made under, I think it's like $3 million or something. There hasn't been, maybe 1 or 2 in the last 10 made more than that. And that's why people have started taking less value in the running backs because of situations like this. If the Niners win, obviously that's a little bit different because it's Christian McCaffrey. But
yeah, I would expect he makes well more than that. Yeah. But getting to that game, the Lions 49ers. So when the Lions scored first, and the way obviously that the first half went overall, I never was like, all right, they're definitely winning. But I was like, okay, I think they've got this. Like, if they just play smart football, because they're able to run the ball in the second half, the key obviously being in that sentence, smart football, then I think they can take down the 49ers because the 49ers are built to play from ahead. And so when you got to the point where it was 24-7, it was like, all right, I don't know that they can come back from this. But the moment that Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled and the moment that Ayuk caught that ball, it was like, oh, this now – I immediately thought Kyle Shanahan is going to have this miraculous comeback and the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was that simple.
Yeah.
It honestly is those 2 plays. Like, it shifted all the momentum. And for a team that is predicated on the run, and that's with all due respect to Brock Purdy, that's just how they're built. That's why this notion of they can't play 2 scores down because do they have enough time to run the ball? Like, it was handed to them. They had the opportunity where they had enough time on the clock that they could get back into this ball game by running the ball. And so that's why Dan Campbell, is going to be highly criticized. He will continue to be highly criticized for not taking the points. Not that it would have been a guarantee that Badgley makes those 48+ yard field goals, because I think he was like batting 45% from that far out. But if it's a 3-score advantage, then that means more clock time for the 49ers in terms of if it takes you 6 minutes to march up and down the field, but now you got to do it 3 times and also get 2 stops thrown in there. That's 18 minutes roughly. Like I'm just throwing out a number there. That's a lot more difficult than when you turn it over deep in your own territory. So that's a shortened field. And then also now it's only a 1-score game, and that'll give them all the time in the world because it was midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I saw stats probably like 2-3 weeks ago about Jared Goff and how Jared Goff has some, like, all of the best numbers in the fourth quarter in the league, like first in completion percentage, first in yards, first in touchdowns, almost every statistical category. But the games where they've lost is when Goff gets rattled and makes some mistakes in the fourth quarter specifically, and we kind of saw that. And it wasn't like he turned the ball over and that the fumble obviously wasn't on him, but a lot of incomplete passes. They weren't as accurate as they were earlier in the game, and I don't know if that's because he starts getting a little panicked and is it because he's getting pressured a little bit more. Bosa had got to him a couple times in the second half at that point, and so I feel like there's a little switch with Goff that if you can get him to that level where he's maybe forcing some things that he didn't have to early, it flips. And that's kind of what we saw in this game. And because when you turn over on downs twice, and obviously that's on some coaching also, but you fumble it, turn over on downs, punt, like that is not the fourth quarter that you need or second half that you need.
And that's the thing, like football, especially when you're playing a team that's at home and they're the ones trying to have the comeback, like the momentum is on their side. And that's why I think, why Dan Campbell's always going to be criticized. It makes sense. They went for it on fourth down 40 times this season, the second most in the league, right? And I saw the first most was the Panthers, and it's not like the Panthers were this great team. They had to keep going for it on fourth down because at one point their kicker got hurt. But before that, I think, too, they just were trying to help Bryce Young out.
They were kind of running out of options.
Yeah, exactly. They were down by 20 all the time, not really helping Bryce Young out, but hoping they could help him out. But I think at some point, though, you have to recognize the situation you're in. And momentum now, you are literally handing the 49ers momentum on a silver platter, and they're way too talented of a team to not just take that and run with it. And so I felt so bad, though, for the Lions and for the 90-year-old who we all have gotten to know throughout this postseason, who has had season tickets for the longest time, right, since 1957. I saw this stat. Detroit has not won a playoff game on the road since 1957.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Before the Super Bowl's current iteration.
I mean, that's the craziness. And so as Jaguar fans, we always talk about how hard it is to be one and all those things. But the Lions have really, I can't imagine waking up Monday morning as a Lions fan this week.
Me either. And I even, because I mentioned last week that I was like, I don't hate the Lions, obviously, because of that situation. It's almost like kind of, I guess, how Jags fans are for Texans. Like, you don't hate them the way you hate Tennessee and the Colts because it just hasn't been that they haven't beat you the same amount, and all of those other factors that kind of go into those games. But I did find myself in this game in the fourth quarter cheering like aggressively hard against the Lions, and I was like, oh, it's in there. It's in there.
I know what you mean, because when the Ravens played the Texans, I was like, it would be a good story for CJ Stroud and everything, and then eventually it was
never mind.
No, I really don't need them in the AFC Championship game. Look, we praised the Kansas City defense, so I feel like on the flip side, the 49ers defense did not play well in the first half. They certainly played a lot better in the second half, and the Lions defense didn't play well. They missed a ton of tackles, and so it's those situations. It's not all Dan Campbell's fault. Yeah. Certainly the team at times let him down, and there was that missed exchange between Goff and between Goff and Gibbs.
And the 2 Reynolds drops, too.
And the 2 drops were huge.
Yeah.
Frank said
not Dan Campbell dropping the ball.
Right. Frank said this yesterday. Dan Campbell let Josh Reynolds off the hook because if he had...
It focused so much on him after that.
Yeah. If he had elected to kick the field goals, whether they were made or not, maybe the situation's different. But either way, we have Chiefs.
Reynolds is probably like, thanks, coach.
Yeah. I mean, because what game was it? Well, we know the Colts game when they lost at the end of the regular season to the Texans. There was that guy, and I forget his name, but the Gardner Minshew had the fourth down, and the guy was open, but the guy dropped it.
It was actually good old Tyler Goodson from the University of Iowa.
Goodson. So, your heart just broke for him, and it was great. I saw he actually talked to reporters post game and things like that. Zay Flowers, you wanted to feel for him in the going back to the Ravens game. But the taunting, I feel like, kind of took people's, heartfelt appreciation for it away.
With that one, you couldn't deny the fact that, yes, the taunting penalty wasn't great. He's a rookie. they also were number 2 in the league in penalties accrued this
Yeah.
season. So that came back to rear its ugly head. But Zay Flowers,
the Ravens?
Zay Flowers, alas. Zay Flowers accounted for 97 of their 116 receiving yards at the point of that penalty. So, like, we can criticize the antics all we want, but they are not in the position to, make it a one-score game at that juncture if not for him.
Yep.
And the Lions did the same thing because C.J. Gardner-Johnson was doing his little wave at halftime. And I'm like,
that was
I
not
can't stand him
smart.
already, but
Yeah.
that's just like the type of guy he is. He likes to irritate people. But I was like, that didn't look good because you weren't even at halftime yet.
No. And the other one, I was trying to think of all the ones. Like, my heart literally, like, hurts when these things happen. The Packers kicker, when he missed the field goal.
Oh,
it
that was
like,
fun.
Yeah, you were excited. I think of these people as, humans with emotions, and it just hurt my heart. All right, when we come back, we'll review our impact players in the AFC NFC Championship games and a whole lot more. You're listening to Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Catch Gators basketball on 1010XL.
It's a rumble at Rupp Arena, Florida, Kentucky. Tomorrow night at 8 on 1010 AM.
EasyCater presents We've Got Your Back. Up Singers.
So I order food on EasyCater for a meeting with a new client in Jackson.
Gotta feed clients in Jackson.
On my way to the airport, it hits me. The client is actually in Jacksonville.
Feed clients in Jacksonville. Oopsie.
So I call EasyCater. Nina picks up right away.
Gonna fix it for you.
She called me right back and said, you're all set.
Nina fixed the Jackson accident.
Jackson? EasyCater has your back with 24/7 support. Order at easycater.com and know.
We got your back.
Now at Hodges Mazda, take advantage of 0% APR on a new 2024 Mazda SUV. Lauren Brooks here. Choose from the off-road ready 2024 Mazda CX-50 or go in style in a 2024 Mazda CX-30. With 0% APR beginning February 1st for 60 months, you can choose the Mazda CX-30 or Mazda CX-50 to drive away in. Our professional non-commissioned sales team always puts your best interests first. Plus, every vehicle purchase comes with 2 years free maintenance. Visit Hodges Mazda online at hodgesmazda.com for the Hodges Mazda difference. See dealer for details, terms, and fees for qualified applicants. Expires February 29, 2024.
This is Mia for Window Gang. Window Gang is the premier exterior cleaning service in Northeast Florida. They aren't your average window washing service. Nope, they offer pressure washing, gutter cleaning, and more. Quality services, professionalism, and always great prices. Call their super friendly staff now at 262-7300 to schedule your free estimate, and be sure to ask about their New Year specials. Window Gang, service beyond your expectations. 262-7300.
Certainly facing challenging economic times. I can't speak for all of us, but for me, comforting to know my money is in good hands with ITP Partners. Ticket here for ITP Partners. Jacksonville guys taking care of my Jacksonville money. I'll admit it, I don't understand a ton about the economy, higher interest rates, 401ks, but I do know as I move closer to retirement, I continue to watch my money grow. Thanks to Chris Bryan, Jeff Hartman, Reagan Wright, Dan Abel, and Reed Wingate. Get in the game, guys. ITP Partners, always there to help. For more info, Chris at ITPPartners.com or call 904-312-9751.
Cooking with Prisco.
These things are wonderful. You're going to love it. Have a rolling.
Catch CBS Sports senior NFL writer Pete Prisco every Friday afternoon on The Franchi Show. Brought to you by Showtime Sports Cards and Collectibles on 1010XL.
Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute is the sports medicine leader in Northeast Florida. We're proud to be the official sports medicine provider for your hometown teams, including the Jaguars, Sharks, Axemen, Armada, and the Jumbo Shrimp. We have the most cutting-edge resources for sports medicine care, including Active Armor casting, Alter-G anti-gravity treadmills, and highly trained physicians and athletic trainers. JOI is truly where the pros go, and so should you.
Good people drink good beer, and great people drink Mocama, a refined craft brewery out of Fernandina Beach, Florida. Mocama Beer Company brings sophisticated flagship beers, including Cosmico IPA and Dune Garden Lager, to the greater Jacksonville area. Whether you're hitting the water with friends or enjoying a backyard barbecue, Mocama has the perfect beer for your summer activities. Look for us wherever great beers are sold and find your Mocama.
So I'm here with Danny Van Sickle, Director of the Electrical Training Alliance. Danny, tell me about your program.
Hey, Rick, we're a 5-year electrical apprenticeship. Our students start out making over $30,000 a year and right now graduate making over $80,000 a year, including benefits. There is no tuition and no student debt. You just have to apply and get accepted.
Did you say no tuition and no student debt?
You heard that right, Rick. Once you're accepted into the program, your only costs are the books and the course fees, around $700 a year.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. How can I learn more?
Just go to etajax.org and you can apply there.
Mike Dempsey here for Awaken 180 Weight Loss. A little quiz for you. Let's see if you can guess what these potential side effects are from. Pancreatitis, urgent bowel movements, depression, suicidal thoughts, kidney stones, birth defects, hypoglycemia, anxiety, and insomnia. If you happen to guess weight loss injections, you'd unfortunately be right. All those risks when 80% of patients gain their weight back within a year of stopping the medications. Now, how about these side effects? Fat loss, happiness, increased mobility, confidence, restful sleep, and increased energy. Those are the effects Awaken 180 clients experience when losing their weight fast and for good, thanks to free support for life. Before opting for medications, first ask your doctor about Awaken 180 weight loss. I'm confident they'll recommend Awaken 180 as safer, faster, and a long-term solution for weight loss. If you already know medications aren't the route for you, give Awaken 180 a call at 844-346-1800 or schedule your consultation at awaken180weightloss.com.
Are you 18 years or older, just got married, just got divorced, or have children? Listen up. Have you done your last will and estate planning? You have questions? Call Matt Hinson with the Hinson Law Firm. Reach him at 527-1700. Office is Jacksonville, Florida. And don't let the state decide your fate.
Discover the difference that local expertise makes at First Coast Lighting and Fans. Visit their showroom at the Avenues and browse high-quality products to match your desire for elegance, quality, and uniqueness at First Coast Lighting and Fans.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet.
Brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans on 1010XL.
Taylor Dahl is here, Mia O'Brien, JJ LaSelva, I'm Lauren Brooks. All right, before we get to our impact players, can someone tell me and fill me in on what's going on with Kadarius Toney? At first I saw he was out due to an injury / personal reasons. Then I thought I saw Kadarius Toney said that was all false. Like, what exactly is happening
He
here?
also welcomed his first child into the world Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's been a lot of plot twists. Don't worry, you're not behind or anything. It's been a very strange road.
Weird.
As many things with Tony have been.
Yeah, it's also true.
Because he came out and they said injured, and he was like, no, I wasn't injured.
Right.
And then they were like, but you were injured. So I don't know what that means.
But then he was at practice.
play.
Yeah, but he's at practice.
Yeah.
So
But he
I
was
think
ruled
they're just
out
tired of him
completely.
dropping the ball.
I mean, yeah.
So he's
I
The
guess.
Bears did that with
out-
Chase Claypool last year.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
just secretly, you were kind of bit
That's
like.
true. I remember that.
Yeah.
But there's always drama
He
surrounding
was
it.
out a couple games because of a hip injury.
Yes.
And then I would equate it to Shaq Griffin in the same
Okay.
Chase Claypool kind of. I don't know. We may see him play in the Super Bowl because we know he played well in the Super Bowl last year. But then you couple that with the birth of his first child, and so it was like, well, he's got to be there Saturday, so he can't be in Baltimore Sunday, and and then he apparently went on Instagram Live Sunday night and was like, I'm not hurt. They're lying. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It's
Very
all,
weird
it's all,
situation.
difficult because it's like, I feel like most athletes, I mean, I shouldn't speak for most, but it seems like they'd be like, yeah, I'll be at the birth of my child on Saturday and then I'll get a private jet thanks to the owner of my company.
Right. Yeah.
And I will be there for the AFC Championship game on Sunday.
If he was
I
that,
feel like there was a
right.
Philly player who did that, like just a couple years ago when they were in. It was like a big thing because he literally left from the game to go to the hospital and like
Yes,
just made it.
I
But I
remember
can't.
that.
Was it Ertz?
No, I don't know if it was Ertz, but there definitely
Like a
was
few years
somebody. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's those Florida guys.
Yeah. But either way, I'm guessing he won't play in the Super Bowl at all. I guess we'll stay tuned for those storylines. All right, we are going to review our impact players that we chose for this past weekend's games. Taylor, I'll start with you. You had Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I did a good job because he won. I was trying to do my reverse jinx, but I instead picked the winner. But I mean, Mahomes is Mahomes, and I think it's one of the situations. There was never a moment where I thought Patrick Mahomes was going to play bad in this game. Like, that just wasn't going to happen. He did only have one touchdown, so there's that. But I think he was like 30 for 39 or something. He's insane.
And I saw this stat, too. He's the first quarterback ever to play in 6 consecutive postseason games without throwing an interception.
That's
like every quarterback gets rattled at some point in time, or maybe they're not rattled, but they throw it to a player and the player bobbles it or tips it.
The little fluky plays still happen somewhere.
Right. Like, obviously, the Purdy to Ayuk, like that ball should have been intercepted.
Yeah.
But in fact, speaking of Ayuk, that was my offensive impact player. I think he did a fantastic job. He made a play that I'm not sure many people would have made because they would have eventually been like, "Oh, that ball was picked," or not kept their eyes on the ball. But yeah, he's been really impactful the past couple of games for the 49ers.
Did you see his reaction to not getting like the number one play from over the weekend?
No.
He posted a video because they had the number one play, the Lamar tipped where he caught it, and that was number one, and he had number two. So it shows number two, and he's like, "I'm number two. Like, who had a better play than I did?" And then it showed him. He's like, "Oh, hell no."
And I liked how people were making fun of, not making fun, but like teasing Giselle, Tom Brady's ex-wife, because she at one point famously tweeted out, like, "My husband can't throw the ball and catch it himself."
They're like,
so everyone was
okay,
like,
well, then he's
actually,
about to go.
Lamar can and did. Mia, you went with 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, and, there was a question mark of whether or not he would be able to play in this game.
Yeah, he was 50-50 the week before.
I know Coach Campo was a little worried with his pick because he was like, man, if Deebo plays, then I'm picking the Niners. If he doesn't, I'm picking the Lions. And it came to fruition that he did play. He ended up being the leading receiver, 8 catches for 89 yards, 3 carries on the ground for 7 yards, so maybe not quite as much of a factor in that run game, but made catches when they needed him, moved the chains. For whatever the reason, he is the cog in the machine that it needs to properly turn and chug its way down the field.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Ayuk, by the way, 3 catches, 68 yards, and then he, of course, had that 1 touchdown. And JJ went with 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, who surprised me by the use of his legs, JJ.
Yeah, he looked great in the second half. Proved a lot of doubters wrong, I'm sure. Next step, Super Bowl.
That's right. I saw this the other day, Brock Purdy saying that he's been watching Patrick Mahomes since he was in high school. So this is very cool that he gets to play against him. How old are we that he was in high school and Mahomes entered the league?
Let's do the math here.
I mean, I know he's a second-year quarterback and all, but still.
Well, technically, I think he means his college. He was
said
watching
high school.
Well, he was watching Texas Tech, I think.
Maybe.
Because technically, Brock Purdy's first year as a true freshman and the starting quarterback at Iowa State was in 2018, which was the first year that Patrick Mahomes was a starter.
Yeah, true. Well, then that makes
only
me
4 years
feel
apart.
better.
So I guess 2017, when Patrick Mahomes played one game, he watched the one game.
There
He
you
watched
go.
one.
And he was in high school.
I don't think we listed my defensive player.
No, we did offensive all around the
gotcha.
table. Now, Taylor, we will get to your defensive player,
Oh.
49ers defensive end, Nick Bosa.
Yes, because I was going to double jinx, and I was like, never mind, I can't. I'm going to put Nick Bosa in this. I think he had a great game. Bosa. One thing I will give credit to for the Lions is how well they've built their offensive line, though, because and especially Penei Sewell. I don't think
He is a beast.
He's insane. I don't think Bosa had, when he was lined up across from him, didn't have one pressure, and that's why they pushed him over to the other side, and he gets 2 sacks after that. But it's just that line, and it just shows what to do, what happens when you build your trenches the right way. But yeah, I mean, he had a couple sacks, I think 4 QB hits, several pressures. So Nick Bosa is just one of those guys that, to me, are so fun to watch, and obviously I wanted the Niners to win, so that was fun.
Absolutely. I went with 49ers linebacker Fred Warner. I just think he is one of the best in the entire league. He had 9 tackles in total, 4 solo. But it's more about he just knows where to be.
And that's what I was about to say. He's one of those guys that you see in almost every single play.
Absolutely.
In some form.
When we saw him in person, it was like, oh my gosh,
He's
this dude is
everywhere.
fast
Yeah.
and physical. He is everywhere. Like, if you could clone him, and we love Foye Lucan, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But Fred Warner when he hits you, ouch. I want no part of that. Mia, you went with Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton.
I did. A little bit quiet of a day in the stat sheet. 4 tackles, 1 pass defended. We'll get to that in a second. A lot of that, though, was because Willie Gay did exit this game, and so a lot of the linebacking responsibility, lining everybody up, the green dot, all of that went to Nick Bolton as the middle linebacker. He usually has that role, but obviously having Willie Gay on the field kind of helps. I am curious that Brock Purdy is not as mobile as Josh Allen or as Lamar Jackson. So in terms of a spy, it'll be curious to see how the Chiefs' defense lines up in the Super Bowl, also knowing the reason Nick Bolton had that pass defense is they had him lined up on Zay Flowers at different points. He did have a pass breakup. So,
Yeah, he did.
He also got burnt for a nice touchdown and a couple other times too. So I'm going to be very curious how Steve Spagnuolo designs this defense. Again, part of that was because they were bringing 5, 6 every single time. And so that put even more pressure on Bolton to have guys lined up and to be a part of that back end. And so, he's at the heart of a defense that, again, I don't think they get enough credit for what they've been able to do.
Do you think they'll do the same thing for trying to add some pressure on Purdy?
I think so. Because
he's not as mobile, so you don't have to worry about that. But
I
he has
still
so
think
many weapons to go to.
He does. I still think they have to have some sort of spy, though, because I think that's what the Lions defense showed you, is if you don't, you are going to get burned. And Alex Anzalone, who occasionally would try and do it, he's not good enough to do it.
You could argue, and I know plenty of our listeners were on the text line saying this yesterday, that the Niners are the only one of the Final Four that didn't have a top 5 interior of their offensive line. They have 2 great tackles, or at the very least one All-Pro in Trent Williams. And so that's where I wonder if the Chiefs think they can get more pressure with 4 up the middle.
Inside.
And that's no knock on the Niners interior of their offensive line, but it's just not, the marquee names that you see, on the Baltimore Ravens with, Tyler Linderbaum, who's really taken the next step in his second year. Some of those other guys, Kevin Zeitler, who's, being named to the Pro Bowl again this year. And so I think that's the part that'll be intriguing to see.
The whole thing is going to be fascinating. I cannot wait. I know we have to wait, and we'll pick our impact players for the Super Bowl next week. But, Kyle Juszczyk is a guy where he's such an X factor for the 49ers. And the way he caught that one ball when Purdy almost
toe
got
drag
sacked,
swag.
Yeah,
from a fullback, baby.
Right. What fullback is able to – there are no other fullbacks, but you know what I mean.
James Coleman, we still appreciate you. Don't you worry.
But literally, the NFL has moved away from a fullback, and yet here's Kyle Juszczyk, who's thriving in that 49ers system. And yes, that catch that he made with his toes was just incredible. When the 49ers line him up and they look like they're going to run, is that what they're going to do with McCaffrey, or does Purdy run? Or are they going to completely try and fool the Chiefs?
Yeah.
And are they going to get too fancy to try to do that stuff like that? It's so fascinating, I think, all the different elements of this Super Bowl. And look, I feel like at the end of it, we're going to be talking about literally an instant classic. That's what I hope. I hope it comes down to who has the ball last.
Yeah.
But the Super Bowl often doesn't. So that's a shame.
But we gotta hope. That's what. Real quick, because what you were saying, I saw somebody breaking down a few of the Niners plays from this last weekend, because obviously the argument has been is Brock this good, or does Brock have so much surrounding him that it's making him look better? And I feel like that'll be, I feel like, a conversation for a little while, but eventually people are going to have to either accept, or things will get exposed, and we'll find that out probably maybe Super Bowl, maybe more next year. But someone was breaking down a lot of Brock's plays and how comfortable he is. You can't deny that, because he went through, and there was a couple plays where Debo, one specifically, Debo ran the wrong route, and the guy was calling it out. He was like, he was definitely supposed to go right, and instead he kind of turned into the midfield, and there was nowhere to go with it. So Brock, no hesitation, goes through his progression, 1, 2, 3, find somebody open. But you have those people that can be open, because there's only so many people you can cover at one time. But I think what you do have to credit him for is how poised he stays in those situations, because it's definitely not easy when you have some of the guys that the Chiefs have coming at you and quickly. And the pocket was collapsing as this was happening too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the flip side, you've got the off-script plays that Patrick Mahomes makes, especially to Kelsey. They do things that most offenses can't do. The plays breaking down, okay, this is not scripted whatsoever, but it's a completion for 21 yards.
Yeah.
And those are just backbreakers, obviously, for a defense. Yeah. So I really think while I think a lot of us were cheering against the Chiefs, certainly me included, I'm tired of their success, and cheering for the Ravens, and I was cheering for the Lions too, just because I don't love every player on the floor. I don't love George Kittle. You love George Kittle. Yeah. But either way, like in the end, what we got was Chiefs 49ers, and I think the NFL is thrilled by this.
Well, because it's arguably the two best teams over the last 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And this is, like, and I hate to put this on, like, to turn it back to Brock Purdy, but after that Super Bowl in 2020 in Miami, Kyle Shanahan said, Jimmy Garoppolo can get me to a Super Bowl, but he cannot win me one.
Mhm.
There are also plenty of folks who believe that, hey, Kyle, you were leading much of that game. Maybe this falls at your feet, that you didn't run the ball, that maybe the style that you opted for in the second half opened the door for Mahomes and company to mount a comeback. And so this is going to be, I don't want to say a referendum, but like it's all going to come full circle now. And it's going to say, hey, the way that these two teams went, because also don't forget on the Chiefs side of things, Tyreek Hill was on their roster back in 2020. And ultimately, their front office said we could keep Tyreek Hill or we can take the treasure trove of picks and the increased cap number we will have because we're not paying him and build up an elite defense. And so I think that's what's going to be so fascinating to see is did those decisions, did those bets that they hedged actually pay off?
Right, absolutely. And I feel like if Mahomes and the Chiefs win, the conversation will be not just about the whole Mahomes versus Tom Brady and all that. Like, that's certainly a conversation, but that's been already discussed, and that'll be continued to be discussed as long as Mahomes plays football.
Yeah.
And eventually, potentially, eclipses the 6 Super Bowls, or seven that he has, 6, the Patriots, yeah. So he has to get at least 7. But I think the bigger storyline is going to be that how Mahomes elevated everyone around him, not named Kelsey. And obviously, how much longer will Kelsey play football? If the 49ers win, the trade to get McCaffrey is going to be, I think, a massive storyline.
Yeah.
And also that they have more weapons. They have George Kittle, and they have Ayuk, and they have Debo, and they have Juwan Jennings, and the list goes on. And I mean, that, and Juszczyk, I mentioned earlier, like that, how do you want to build your roster? I mean, the 49ers also have some really talented defensive players, just like the Chiefs do. So that's all I think going to be, as we always compare it to the Jaguars, what's the best way to go about it? Last year when we had the conversation, the Jaguars compared to the Chiefs and the Eagles, we thought the Jags were much closer because they had just barely lost to the Chiefs in Arrowhead. But moreover, we knew that the sack numbers by the Chiefs and the Eagles were the best in all of the NFL. So that's what one of our biggest talking points all offseason was the Jags have to get to the quarterback. They've got to pick up. We all thought they would get at least one free agent to address that edge rusher situation. But alas, a year later, the Jaguars are farther than we thought, and there was no free agent pass rusher.
There was not. They did have more sacks, though.
But they did have more sacks. Very good point.
Not interior-wise, though. That's where the issue. But
absolutely.
That's for later.
All right, Taylor will take us around the NFL when we come back. You are listening to Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
The station with the best Jaguars coverage when Jag News breaks. Hear it first on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Save big at Key Buick GMC with up to $10,000 off on all new Buick Enclaves or up to $9,000 off new Buick Envisions. Receive really low APR rates like 1.9% APR financing for 36 months, 4.5% for 48 months, or 60 months, 5.4% for up to 72 months. Come on in now to Key Buick GMC and enjoy no payments on the Buicks for 90 days. That's 3 months. Key Buick GMC on the corner of Southside and Gate, KeyBuickGMC.com.
Well, hello there. Join me at Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino to celebrate a new era in gaming. With live craps, roulette, and sports betting now available to go along with the biggest selection of slots in South Florida. Plus, all your other favorite table games. Complement your night with my award-winning fine dining and casual fare options, lively bars and lounges, or catch your favorite A-list entertainer at Hard Rock Live. Discover your rhythm today. Go to hardrockholly.com. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-888-ADMIT-IT. Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino.
Hey, Jacksonville, I'm sure by now you've seen our bright green GFL trucks and containers throughout the greater Jacksonville area. We are an industry leader in solid waste and would love the opportunity to earn your business. We are committed to customer service, reliability, and have unwavering focus on safety. Whether commercial or construction, let us haul your waste away. Call 904-760-5880 to get a quote today. GFL, green for life.
I'm with Greg from Cycles of Jacksonville, and I always tell you, hey, what's hot on the street, but what is hot on the water right now?
We've got some big news from Honda. They have a boat coming out, and much like they did with their jet, they went out and partnered with an industry leader in Scout Boats. It's making the hull for them, but everything else in the boat is all Honda.
So you're talking in the next handful of days and weeks, we will see Honda on the water at your showroom.
It'll be on the showroom, and it'll be ready to go.
So log on to cyclesofjacksonville.com. They are in the marine business with Honda. Keep track of it right there on Atlantic near Regency. Northeast Florida's highest-rated residential home electrical contractor is American Electrical, providing unsurpassed quality in Duval, St. Johns, Clay, and Nassau counties. No matter your electrical problem or project, large or small, American Electrical will get it done at a price that's right. High-quality electrician, that's who they are. Trust a company that's been on the First Coast for decades, proudly serving the community while being a big part of the community. Call American Electrical for all your electric needs at 737-7770. Wired right at a fair price.
Wintertime at the Blue Crab Crab House. You know what that means. Time for oysters. Buy them by the tray, broiled, half shell with Romano cheese, wine topping, or fried. And of course, each and every Wednesday, $1 oysters at the Blue Crab Crab House. Serving Northeast Florida since 1996. Make reservations by calling 260-CRAB. Jacksonville's best, the Blue Crab Crab House off of San Jose on Jewington Creek Road.
Shen Yun shows are coming January 30th to 31st to Jacksonville Center for the Performing Arts. Shen Yun revives 5,000 years of civilization through choreographed dance, with music combining classical Western and Chinese instruments and dynamic 3D backdrop. Come see it at least once in your lifetime. January 30th through 31st. Tickets at shenyun.com/FL.
Are you facing a plumbing challenge? Need some septic system TLC? Or maybe you want to keep your indoor temperature nice and cool? We're Duck Duck Rooter, a locally owned company and proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we believe in turning every challenge into an opportunity to provide outstanding service. From unclogging drains to keeping your air conditioning crisp, we've got you covered. Contact us today for all your plumbing, septic, and air conditioning needs. 904-862-6769. That's 904-862-6769. Or online at duckduckrooter.com.
This is Keith Catlin for Catlin Truck Accessories, and we are so blessed to be in business for over 100 years. Over 100 years of the best product and customer service means you can count on Catlin. From roll and lock bed covers to Lear toppers to cam locker toolboxes, Catlin Truck Accessories has you covered when it comes to your truck or van. We do those too. Got a fleet of vehicles? We can outfit them all.
Who can you count on? Count on Catlin.
One name, one location, 100 years. You can count on Catlin.
The First Coast Games is an annual corporate challenge to introduce fun activities into the workplace and focus on your employees' health and wellness goals, with some friendly competition, of course. Registration is now open through the First Coast YMCA for both recreational and challenge divisions, including pickleball, cornhole, volleyball, flag football, and other team sports. The games will begin in March. Register your company and teams at fcymca.org.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Helmets and Heels
On 1010XL, driven by Tire Outlet.
brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans.
Welcome back to Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet. Me, O'Brien, Taylor, Dahl, JJ Silva, I'm Lauren Brooks. So I have a quick funny story specifically for Taylor because we talked about this bar that, so friends of mine we were doing a little girls' night this past weekend, and one of my friends owns some property in Salt Springs. JJ, by the way, that's kind of near Ocala. Have you ever been to Salt Springs?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever been to Cactus Jack's?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then
it's in the middle. It's not in the middle, but it's in the forest, probably like 20 minutes from where I live.
Okay, yeah. So I looked on the map when we were headed down because I'd never been to my friend's property. And I looked on the map and I was like, it looks like it's in the Ocala National Forest. Like, how is a bar inside? But yeah, I guess it's like right across the street. So we are able to walk from where so this is her, like I said, like little, probably 2 acres worth of property, has a house and a place for their boat. It's great. And so we're able to walk from her place to the bar and back. But anyway, this is the point of the story. So, and since you've been to Cactus Jacks, you may appreciate it even more, JJ. So the best line of the night is not one person, but multiple people come up to my friends and I and ask if those were our real teeth.
Oh,
like multiple, like not together, but like different people just came out. And they're like, "Are those really all your real teeth?" And we were all like, "Yes," but like, is this like, are y'all playing a joke on us? I don't understand.
They all gathered and they're like, "Let's mess with this."
That's what I think exactly what they're doing. Like they're not here all the time. Like, and so it was really funny.
I'm gonna defer to JJ on that one.
Yeah,
this normal?
I can't believe you went there.
Is this normal behavior for that?
Yeah, this is
for that
the middle of the woods. Like I don't know why you drove an hour and a half.
Well,
to
we
go
were
to
staying.
Cactus
We were
Jacks.
staying at my friend's place in Salt Springs.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah, so
I
she
missed
lives
that
very
part.
close. Yeah, so that was like that's the bar that they go to.
That's the only bar.
Yeah, it is the only bar. Absolutely, and they had a band. And I just assumed because of where we were, it would be country, and I would be loving life.
It wasn't?
No, it was like 90s rock, which is
I
fine.
like that.
I knew it, yeah, but I was like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, because when you told me that's where you were going, I was like, that sounds super familiar. And I would always pass it when I would go to my grandma's house, and I was always like, man, I really want to stop there. It looks like you'd meet some interesting people at that place.
And we absolutely did. I, of course, got laughed at because I asked for a glass of Chardonnay, and they were like, this type
Wow.
of bar, I know. This type of bar is not going to have Chardonnay. Of course they had Chardonnay, so way to go, Cactus Jacks. If anyone else goes, I hope you would have an absolute blast. All right, Taylor, what do you have for us?
some barefoot there.
Yes, exactly. I think it really was a double bottle of Barefoot. And you know it's good wine when it's the double bottle.
Oh, yes.
The full liter.
Yes. Okay, so NFL, I want to take a little look, kind of a recap of the season, as now it's kind of over. Obviously, the Super Bowl, that's it. Because every year we talk about the teams that the change in the playoffs from previous season to this season, how many teams didn't make it, former years, and all of those different statistics of that. And so I want to talk about that, and I have a question of which of these teams surprised you the most of the ones that did not make the postseason this year compared to last year.
Okay.
So that's Bengals, Jags, Chargers, Vikings, Giants, Seahawks.
Repeat them, sorry.
Bengals, Jags, and we obviously know why the Bengals, but Bengals, Jags, Chargers, Vikings, Giants, Seahawks.
You also know the Vikings. The Giants' demise didn't surprise me. The Seahawks kind of coming back to equilibrium did not surprise me, although I would equate them more to the Jags, even though they were a little less snake-bitten, just because I think they had the same record that they finished with last year, just it was good enough for a wild card spot one year and not the other. For me, the surprise was the Chargers, just because of how bad and how quickly things devolved in Los Angeles, and that's not a victory lap with regards to Big Brain Brandon Staley. Like, I just couldn't believe that a roster with that much talent lost that many close games, which has always kind of been their thing, but to the point that it resulted in just an absolute massive regression across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously you look at the teams that had the quarterback injuries. So the Vikings, I think, would have made the postseason with Kirk Cousins being healthy. The Chargers, I don't think even with a healthy Justin Herbert would have made it this year because, like Mia mentioned, the head coach did them no favors. The Bengals, the only reason they missed, I think, was the fact that Joe Burrow was hurt because he was hurt to start the year and then got hurt again. But the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, while he was injured at different points of the season for a lot of the end of the season, at no point did the Jags lose him for an entire few games or anything like that. But injuries aside, I predicted the Jaguars would have the number one overall seed in the AFC a year ago. So I'm going to say it's the Jaguars not making the postseason. That's
They did for like 4 minutes.
They came, Well, I think they would have had it.
40 minutes.
They would have had it
late
if they
window finish.
Yeah, they would have had it had they beat the Bengals. But again, Jake Browning.
In the time it took me to get from NRG Stadium onto my flight home, that was when the Chiefs won, and then there went that number one overall seed.
I think for me, I think I have to say the Chargers just because a team going from 10 wins to 5 wins when you didn't really lose, it's not like they lost anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
They were the same roster.
It's just, you have virtually the same roster, the same quarterback that we consistently talked about. The argument a lot this last offseason was who's better, Herbert or Trevor, who's going to be better, who has the higher ceiling, all of those things. And everyone, or a lot of people, put Herbert, maybe not on that top, because usually it's like Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, probably, and then right below that. But you had everything that you had the year before, and you had 5 less wins, and it's insane to me.
And part of it, too, is that this had to be the year for them.
Yeah.
They are about to enter quite the cap situation, which, by the way, I do want to give the Chargers their flowers. Have hired Jim Harbaugh since we were last on the air. Have also hired Joe Ortiz as of last night out of the Baltimore Ravens organization to become their GM. He's a guy who, way back when, we're talking 2019, 2020, like I said, the Jaguars should go after him. So a great hire there. But it's going to be an uphill sledding for them because, yes, you have your quarterback. Yes, you have these young pieces, but there's a lot of money due, and it's going to get ugly. They're going to have to say goodbye to some people, whether that's Khalil Mack, whether that's Joey Bosa, whether that's Derwin James, whether that's Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, who's been begging for a new deal for it feels like eons.
Yeah.
Like, that roster is not going to look like what it has. They pushed all the chips to the middle of the table for 2023, and they won 5 games.
I'm very disappointed if you are a Chargers fan. So which of these that made it this year that didn't last year are the most surprising? Texans. Browns, Steelers, Rams,
I picked the
Packers,
Texans to
Lions.
win 7 games, so that's,
You
Go
picked
through
the
them again.
Texans too?
I did, yeah.
Texans, Browns, Steelers, Rams, Packers, Lions.
The Rams are is the answer
yeah.
for Mia because
Yes.
Mia, I remember saying the Rams would be in the hunt for the number 1 overall pick.
Yep, I did. I firmly believe that
I
they
remember
were.
that.
I believe
I do remember that,
they
too.
were tearing it down. They were going to keep Caleb Williams in LA. I firmly believed it, especially with all the speculation of Sean McVay potentially stepping away.
Yeah.
Well, get ready for the second act because, man, oh man, I mean, for a team that hasn't had a first-round pick since 2016, crushed the draft.
Insane.
Found insane value in the 3rd to 5th round on day 3, especially with Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
And credit to Sean McVay and credit to Matthew Stafford. Stays healthy. Is able to mesh with these young cats. Don't forget they didn't have Cooper Kupp in the early goings of the season either.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, haha, fool's gold. Just you wait. They're about to revert back. And no, it never happened. So yeah, the Rams for me were the surprise.
And I remember all of the rumors before the season about how Matthew Stafford wasn't connecting with his rookies and like there was a disconnect and he was
That story
And
could have
then-
been. Were they tricking us? Were they? Because the
Classic
Rams
LA
had
media.
some great rookies, not just Puka Nacua, but
Yeah.
on defense too. They drafted well. Yeah, I think for me it's the Texans because knowing them as well as we do since they're in the division, I just thought there was no way that a rookie quarterback, a first-year head coach, and the fact that they were picking so high in the draft, I mean, because we've been through that here, I just didn't think that they would be successful right away. I thought eventually C.J. Stroud would be really good.
Yeah.
But I thought they had too much to rebuild. The offensive line wasn't great. The running back situation ended up being okay, but you weren't sure going into the season if they were going to be able to run the ball behind that offensive line. I didn't think they had great weapons as far as receivers were concerned, and I thought they still needed to rebuild a lot of the defense. Well, I was wrong because C.J. Stroud basically didn't throw an interception his rookie season. I know he threw a couple, but not very many.
And the news just came down that Bobby Slowick is staying in Houston as the offensive coordinator. He
Dadgummit.
pay raise, and so he will not be accepting the head coaching position in Washington.
Apparently nobody wants to work there.
Which is crazy because they got rid of Dan Snyder, they cleaned house, and now all of a sudden no one wants the job.
Well, you don't have a
I will
quarterback.
coach the Washington Commanders. I volunteer as tribute, just like I did the Atlanta Falcons, who were interviewing everyone from your grandmother to your neighbor down the street last week.
But the Falcons at least hired someone,
Yeah.
although people were a little surprised.
Yeah, we'll
by
get
the
to that,
hire,
I'm sure, at some point. Yeah.
But I think with Dave Canales, but I think the Commanders, I mean, the fact that Ben Johnson was like, no, I'm good earlier today when they were en route to Seattle, like something strange is going on there.
Yeah, he apparently released a statement. I don't have it in front of me, but kind of was like, yeah, my wife and I talked about it, and we love Detroit. And it's like, hey, listen, you bet on yourself last year that you guys would do one better.
Absolutely.
You did. You made the NFC title game. So, like, I'm not going to bet against this guy. But at the same time, like, hello, look at Byron Leftwich. Where is he? Does anyone know where he is? 2 years ago, he was one of the hottest coaching candidates in the National Football League. So you can't guarantee your window of opportunity for a position, a job is going to be out there.
Yeah. And I will say, I never make fun of other cities because I feel like Jacksonville gets made fun of so much. Like, I've never been to Detroit, so I'm not going to sit and laugh and be like, oh, how on earth could you ever want to stay in Detroit? Like, he may not like Washington, D.C. for all we know.
Yeah.
Either
he is
way.
from North Carolina, so maybe it's
small town in
little
Detroit. Not really.
mid-Atlantic rivalry. I don't
there
know.
you go.
Yeah, I think with him, it is an interesting one because you had a year where, and even Dan Campbell in his press conferences were like, it's not easy. Like, your windows are short in the NFL to win for a lot of teams. And he kind of even said, this was probably our shot. It's going to be hard to get back here. But maybe that's why. Maybe they've had enough conversations where they're like, hey, if you stay, like, we can get there. Because he was really good. There was a lot of Bears fans who were obviously upset that he did stay. But I think just for me, real quick on the surprising, I almost can make an argument for any of these other than the Lions because I had the Lions.
Right.
I thought they were going to be good in the beginning of the season. But obviously questions about Jordan Love, questions about, we mentioned the Rams, we mentioned the Texans. But to me, I almost even want to say the Steelers because Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, I feel like, yes, we talk about Mike Tomlin, but I just felt like they didn't have enough there, especially in that division, because you felt like you had a feeling the Ravens were going to be good. In my head, Joe Burrow would be there all season, so the Bengals would be up there too. And then you were kind of expecting a better season from the Browns. You didn't expect it to be the way it was, but you felt like it would be better. So for me, I was completely shocked that they ended with the record they did and were able to slide in.
I fell for the George Pickens, Kenny Pickett preseason hype. So I picked them to go to the playoffs.
George Pickens is really good.
And now Arthur Smith is going to have him in shackles just like he did one Kyle Pitts. And he's going to be throwing it to some random fullback instead.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Darnell Washington. The offense runs through you now.
There you have it. All right, when we come back, we will talk about the hometown team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. You listen to Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Because touchdowns are more fun.
Pump fakes left, now throws it over the middle. Touchdown! 3 touchdowns tonight.
1010XL.
This is Mia for Window Gang. Window Gang is the premier exterior cleaning service in Northeast Florida. They aren't your average window washing service. Nope, they offer pressure washing, gutter cleaning, and more. Quality services, professionalism, and always great prices. Call their super friendly staff now at 262-7300 to schedule your free estimate, and be sure to ask about their New Year specials. Window Gang, service beyond your expectations. 262-7300.
Jimerson Burr is a full-service, Florida-based commercial law firm that has experience and capabilities to handle any legal issue a business is confronted with. Learn more about what they can do for you at jimersonfirm.com.
Wow, John, my Clearwater sprinkler system looks great.
All right, Frank, let's go ahead and program your Rainbird timer. How many minutes do you want the zones to run?
John, I think we run from the front 20, the sides 15, the back 10, the garden 5. Clearwater scores!
Well, that's a first, Frank, but you're the boss.
Clearwater Irrigation. We can't sing a lick, but we sure are good at sprinklers.
And drainage to
ClearwaterJacks.com.
At Ameris Bank, we're invested in the success of your business. Our local bankers are ready to help you improve your cash flow, optimize your operating accounts, and access financing when you need it. From treasury services and digital banking to loans and lines of credit, we offer tailored solutions to help your business thrive. At Ameris Bank, we're with you. Visit amerisbank.com/withyourbusiness or walk into one of our branches today to get started. Ameris Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All loans subject to credit approval.
Discover the difference that local expertise makes at First Coast Lighting and Fans. Visit their showroom at the Avenues and browse high-quality products to match your desire for elegance, quality, and uniqueness at First Coast Lighting and Fans.
Hey, Matt Hayes here. You know, battling a sinus infection for the past few weeks has been no picnic, especially when trying to stick to a weight loss program. Here's the funny thing. With Awaken 180, the trick to losing weight is actually eating. Now, when you're under the weather and have zero appetite, keeping up with a diet plan sounds like climbing Mount Everest, right? But here's the kicker. Even though I wasn't feeling hungry, I didn't gain a pound. In fact, I'm now 36 pounds lighter, all thanks to my coach, Krista. Without her guidance, I probably would have thrown in the towel and watched those pounds creep back on. The Awaken 180 coaches have seen it all and helped over 21,000 others get through every imaginable scenario. So if you're tired of going solo and want a coach, a friend really, in your corner, stop trying to wing it. Call the experts at Awaken 180 Weight Loss, 844-346-1800, or check them out at awaken180weightloss.com. Trust me, it's a game changer. 346-1800 at awaken180weightloss.com.
Wondering what you're going to do for dinner tonight? Southern Steer Butcher is a full-service butcher, and we grind and make sausage in-house every day.
Now open in Ortega. For tasty tips and juicy breasts, choose Southern Steer Butcher.
The flagship station of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
I'm Sheriff T.K. Waters with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. We're currently hiring for police, corrections, 911 dispatchers, and various civilian jobs. And for a limited time, JSO is offering a hiring incentive of up to $10,000 for police and corrections applicants. Details are available at joinjso.com. I invite you to apply today and start your journey as a law enforcement professional, helping us drive down crime and foster positive relationships with citizens. Are you ready to be a part of the solution? The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is an equal opportunity, equal access employer.
Frank Franzi here for Stanley Pools. There's a reason so many of my friends and our listeners have had Stanley Pools build their pools and now maintain their pools, because Stanley Pools truly cares about their customers. Stanley Pools is locally owned and has been serving our community for 35 years. For all of your pool needs, call Stanley Pools at 269-7277. That's Stanley Pools, a family tradition of fine swimming pools. 269-7277, or find them online at stanleypoolsfl.com.
Lauren Brooks here from Mayport CNC Fisheries. Want the freshest seafood in town? From mahi to tuna to scallops to oysters. Mayport CNC Fisheries is in Atlantic Beach. Do what I did. Go enjoy Mayport CNC Fisheries.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Stilettos and sabermetrics.
Helmets and heels. Driven by Tire Outlet.
Brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans on 1010XL.
Taylor Dahl, Mia O'Brien, JJ LaSalva, I am Lauren Brooks. Taylor, you have one more NFL question for us?
I do. I have a few of the bigger storylines from this season.
Okay.
And outside of Jags world, because obviously here that's the most important to us. So outside of the Jaguars, if I were to, I'm going to go through this list of headlines, and I want you guys to tell me which one you think would, when we're in the future and we're looking back and be like, do you remember in 2023 how wild this was because this happened?
Okay.
If one of these, or if you have your own, because obviously a lot of things happened this season. So I'll go through a few of them. Aaron Rodgers gets injured immediately.
That was wild.
Game one.
I remember exactly where I was when it happened.
Yes. Deshaun Watson gets injured, and Flacco saves the season for the Browns.
Wild, especially because it did affect the Jags.
Yes. Mike Tomlin gets another 10-win season with Trubisky, Pickett, and Rudolph.
Water is wet.
Lamar Jackson, another MVP season. And let's just say, feel like maybe the season was his stamp of like, hey, you can take me seriously for the future. C.J. Stroud's rookie season. Baker Mayfield resurgence in Tampa. Panthers sell all of their good players, draft a quarterback and pretty much abandon him, and the owner throws a drink on somebody
and fires the entire coaching staff.
Pete Carroll and Belichick in their time coaching for at least TBD. Or if there's another one that really stands out, what do you think when we look, let's say in 5 years, when we're like, man, do you remember 2023? How crazy was this?
I would throw in Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
And the fact that once Anthony Richardson got hurt, he was able to step up and then make it to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
But I think as far as in the future, at least in my opinion, I think C.J. Stroud is so good that in 5 years we'll look back and be like, he was good right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So his rookie season, we may not see another one like that for a very long time, if ever. So that's the one that I think, especially because it, again, affects the team here. But I think overall we'll look back. And not that it was... I guess a lot of people did think he'd be really good, but it's almost impossible to be that good that quickly in this league.
It has to be Aaron Rodgers because I have never seen a man.
Says the New Jersey girl.
Well, no, but also it's like we all were subject to him. Like it didn't matter where you were. This man wasn't playing football for the last 5 months, but we had to hear about, he may come back.
Yeah.
He's on McAfee today. He's at practice. And this was after we had the Hard Knocks experience and the trade drama and everything else we've had for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It all built up to this one moment, and all we have from it is him running with the American flag on September 11th through the tunnel. and then 2 handoffs and then an injury. Like, that's it. That's it. Like,
That's all it was.
That's all there is. And so now what's going to be so fascinating is they're running it back. Speaking of teams that are running it back, they're bringing everybody back. No one got fired. No one got let go, basically. And they're trying to bring the whole roster back, too, because they are convinced that they built this thing around Aaron Rodgers, and if he can just play Aaron Rodgers football, the Jets will actually go to the promised land. And it's just, he could get hurt again. I don't wish that upon him, but, then what happens? Like, you
better have a good backup.
The defense could regress.
No offense, Zach Wilson, but I don't know that he's the answer in that regard. What's the wildest one to you?
As I was going through, because I just kind of started typing things that were popping out, and I was like, oh, that's another one. That's another one. I kind of want to say the Baker stuff just because I'm interested to see moving forward. From what I'm hearing from Tampa fans, they want to roll with Baker and keep going.
Right.
So we'll see how that pans out, obviously, in a couple years. But I do think that's going to be one of the things when we're like, man, do you remember that year? Like, quarterback-wise, some wild things happen. It's going to be more of a grouping, I think, of that. Like, Watson gets hurt and Flacco played and Rodgers got hurt right away. Baker Mayfield comes in and kind of has his, like, I'm back year. I think it's going to be more of a combine. And I go back to, I remember in 2017, back at that point, we thought we were seeing some things happen with Blake Bortles, obviously, but I remember now you see memes where you're like, this was really the conference championship because it was Nick Foles, Case Keenum, Blake Bortles, and Tom Brady were the 4 quarterbacks left in the conference championship round. So I'm interested to see in 10 years what we are talking about when we're saying Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, and Tom Brady. Like, because Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, pretty much Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady and Lamar, I think, is something that for a very long time, like, we'll be able to talk about. But it's going to be interesting what we say about Brock and Jared in 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mahomes, I assume will still be playing in 10 years, and Lamar, I would expect they're both around the same age. The other two are younger, so you really would expect them. Is Jared Goff still playing with the Lions? I do think that had the Lions beat the 49ers, had they finished off that victory, and had they made it to the Super Bowl, that would be certainly a wild story the fact that obviously the Rams traded Goff away. They didn't think he could win them a Super Bowl. He goes to the Detroit Lions and at least made the Super Bowl. Like, who knows? I doubt they would have beat the Chiefs just because I think no one can beat the Chiefs at this point in time. They've proven me wrong time and time again. So, yeah, I do think that would have been a wild story. There's a lot to choose from, though. You're absolutely right. And obviously here in Jacksonville, the biggest storyline or the biggest question I think now is how far is the Jaguars roster away from the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl? Mia, I'll start with you, but to me, the interior of the offensive line we've talked about a ton. You compare that to the Chiefs and the 49ers, I don't think there's much comparison. The interior of the defensive line, the Chiefs, really good there. The 49ers aren't quite as good there. They have much better outside guys. But overall, how far or close would you say the Jaguars roster is to these 2 teams?
I mean, let's put it this way. It's a low bar to clear. It still is one of the best rosters that this team has had, if not the best, in the ShadCon. In the ShadCon.
Very low bar.
Very low bar to clear. Yeah. But that's the truth of the situation, is that it is the best roster that they have assembled in quite some time. And while they're not going to be able to completely run it back, like they did this past offseason, number one, because financially I don't think they're going to be able to, and number two, because clearly you have to rework some things, and so maybe that was a good wake-up call. It's tough because I think when you look at the rest of the AFC, the Buffalo Bills are going to be facing some cap questions. You look at the Titans with a new head coach. You look at the Colts, and now they'll have Anthony Richardson back. You look at the Raiders, a new look there. The Chargers, a new head coach there, but it's still Justin Herbert. But again, the cap hell that we mentioned that they're going to be going through. And so I don't really know what everyone else is going to look like. And so that's where I can't really determine where the Jags fall. And not to mention, I mean, again, I'm not wishing injury upon anybody, but who's to say if C.J. Stroud doesn't break his ankle in the first game of the year? You know, like no one saw that coming for Aaron Rodgers with tearing his Achilles. And so that completely changes the complexity of the AFC East race. And so that's where, like, look, it's a better roster than it was. I don't know if it's good enough to compete with the best of the best, because then again, I thought the Ravens had the best roster in the NFL, in the AFC, And the Chiefs, with arguably the quote-unquote worst roster around Mahomes in his tenure, just used their championship DNA to pull past them and pull past the Bills, too.
Yeah, and I think Taylor, all of it comes down to really not all of it, but a lot of it comes down to the quarterback.
Yeah.
And is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to ever be as good as Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy have been in order to get their teams where they are?
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it. And I think when you are building where the Jags stand right now, we saw this last year with, and I mentioned this on Twitter too, about how both teams, as in the Lions and the Jags, ended with 9 wins last season. The Lions came back this season with it was like 11 or 12 of the same starters. The rest were different. And that's after 9 wins. They missed the playoffs, yes, so they knew that they were a little short of being on that next level, but clearly got better this season and almost at every spot. I remember people judging their draft, including me at certain points, because I was like, you just signed David Montgomery. Why are you getting Jahmyr Gibbs? That looks like it worked. Obviously, Laporta looks like that worked. There's their Branch. Oh, that was a familiar name we were talking about here. And so they went and they said, hey, we won 9 games and barely missed the playoffs, but there's a lot of improvement to still be made in the season. I wouldn't be surprised if honestly the Lions did it again, even reworked some other things of where they kind of fell short in certain situations this season. And that's the one thing when it comes to like what the Jaguars need to do is don't build your roster hoping that maybe CJ Stroud gets hurt. That's not going to work.
And banking on development of your own roster.
Yes, you have to get guys that are, and it sucks sometimes because you do grow some attachments to some players sometimes, and when they have been on the team for X amount of years, and all of those things start to factor in for fans because we are fans also as we're talking about them. But at the end of the day, you should not stop improving your roster. And when you're looking at what they did last year to this year, that's why there was this drop-off. So to me, I think they do still have a decent amount to go before they're at the level of this team. And I think a 5-game lose streak tells you that. You can go back and talk about all these moments, a missed field goal here and blah, 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 but you can do it on the opposite side of the ball too. There's probably other teams that lost to the Jags this season that were like, man, we were 2 plays away from actually being able to win that game.
Yeah, the Texans hit the crossbar.
Yes.
Oh, the kicker did.
And so in those situations, you don't want to constantly come down to that. You want to be one of the teams like how the Chiefs and Niners are. Yes, we saw the Niners lose 3 straight this season, but what they were able to do after that was improve game by game, and they realized what wasn't working those 3 games and changed it. The Jags did almost the exact opposite.
Yeah, and it's not always just about roster. I mean, you want the very best roster you can possibly come up with, but a lot of it's about scheme, whether that's offense or defense, and play calling certainly offensively. Yeah. If you feel like you're not where you need to be, that needs to improve. And Andy Reid is so good at it. Kyle Shanahan is so good at it. Doug Peterson is so good at it, but he wasn't calling plays this past year. So do they look at all that? There's a lot, obviously, with the new defensive coordinator who we talked about last week. There's a lot that has to improve, and it's not just the specific players, but certainly developing who you have, picking really good players, adding to your roster and free agency, but also tweaking the offensive and defensive schemes.
Yeah.
All of that factors in. By the way, hour and 11 minutes into the show, there's one name I haven't mentioned whatsoever. This is Helmets and Heels. I feel like the people are clamoring for me to mention her name.
We know.
I was not okay.
I'm looking right at you, Taylor. I suppose I have said the name Taylor, but I have not said Taylor Swift. Do you feel like the NFL and Roger Goodell were just so happy that Taylor Swift's boyfriend made it into the Super Bowl?
Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I mean, I definitely, you see all these things about, I'm weird because I already wasn't a big Taylor Swift fan before. Like, I was already like, she kind of annoys me. So that's why it's lingered into this now it's lingered into the football world for me. But whatever. It doesn't like hurt my feelings when they show her on the TV. But all of the things that you're reading about how now little girls are like watching the games with their dads because, yes, for Taylor, but then you find them, they're asking questions because they're like, hold on, like, why'd that happen? Or why is she cheering in this moment? And so this has broadened it into certain areas that probably wouldn't happen if it wouldn't have been so much Taylor. But I'm sure they love it because Taylor gets attention. So the Super Bowl is probably going to have crazy numbers because people are just going to be watching for her and Usher. My best friend, literally, I was like, oh, we have a Super Bowl party. Do you want to come? She was like, yeah, what time does Usher play? I was like, well,
hey, some people are music oriented.
Who's to say that doing a throwback artist doesn't pull at the heartstrings and get those ratings up too? At first I was like, Usher? Like, when was the last, like, mainstream Usher, like, hit single? But hey, pulls of the nostalgia of our age group, and, and here we are.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point someone wanted to ask the question, like, can Taylor Swift just do that?
Well, did you see the conspiracy
show?
now? That's
No.
now the conspiracy that was floated. Well, she couldn't do it because she knew that Travis would be in the Super Bowl.
Well,
there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around out there.
Those are always a bit funny to me when it comes to sports, just because I don't really think, I mean, there are times that I think the officials do a bad job, but I don't think it's because of conspiracies. All right, we've got more to do. We've got our highlights on the other side. Keep it right here on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
1010XL takes you behind the microphone.
Are you crying? There's no crying. You wake up in the morning, so I put on my big boy pants.
Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser.
And you know why? What? No crying.
Mornings on 1010XL.
Because there's no crying.
Buying a car can be stressful, especially one sold as is or with no warranty. Do the 7, 10, or 30-day warranties leave you wondering what will happen on day 31?
Stop. Car buying doesn't need to be so stressful. Beaver Toyota and Beaver Chevrolet now offer the exclusive Beaver Certified program protecting your used car for 7 years or 100,000 miles. That's right, certified Hondas, Fords, Nissans, and any other make you consider now come with the peace of mind you deserve. Shop worry-free at Beaver Toyota in St. Augustine or Beaver Chevrolet in Jacksonville.
You know, many plumbers won't quote prices over the phone and instead charge a service fee for an in-home estimate. Of course, because they know once they're in your home, you're probably not going to send them away. But Roland Reach Plumbing is different. Roland will give you a price quote over the phone. And there's never a trip charge or service fee for an estimate. So if you've got a leak and can't wait a week and don't like paying unnecessary fees, call on Roland Reach Plumbing at plumbingjacksonville.com.
The First Coast Games is an annual corporate challenge to introduce fun activities into the workplace and focus on your employees' health and wellness goals, with some friendly competition, of course. Registration is now open through the First Coast YMCA for both recreational and challenge divisions, including pickleball, cornhole, volleyball, flag football, and other team sports. The games will begin in March. Register your company and teams at fcymca.org.
Every weekend is a Stone Cold Sports Weekend. Hey, Dan Hicken here. Watch for the Weekend with Dan on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll help you put together your sports weekend. Weekend with Dan brought to you by Stone Core. We do the outdoors better.
I-9 Sports. Kids all over the First Coast can enjoy growing up on a field or in a gym. Right now, winter and spring registration is open, so make sure you find out what I-9 Sports offers in your area. Duval, Clay, and St. John's. i9sports.com. Enter 1010 in the promo code for a discount.
If your resolution is to improve your golf game, you'll want to consider Hidden Hills Golf Club's annual range membership. One low price gives you 12 months of unlimited access to our Bermuda Grass Complex. Visit hiddenhillsgc.com.
You've got a circle of friends, right? Well, how about a circle of beer? All your favorites like Bud Light, Bud Heavy, Mick Ultra, or Natty Light. It's all there in the cold case at Circle K. Probably one right around the corner right now calling your name. Slide on in to a Circle K.
This is your Mad Dads Update with Chapter President Donald Ford. Mad Dads is asking for good, committed men who want to be part of an organization that has been around for 17 years. We are a group that is part of the solution, not the problem. We are a group that don't stand around murmuring and complaining, but get into action and hit the streets to get the community to break the code of silence to remove the murderers off our streets. We do not require a lot of time, just willing and able bodies to get involved. We've had far too many murders this year already not to get involved. If you want to be part of this great organization, call 904-718-1649. We're looking for men, not men acting like boys. Hit me on Facebook and tell me what you think. For information about Mad Dad, go to Mad Dads Jacksonville Chapter Facebook or MadDadsJacksonville.com.
Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are two of the best life-saving investments for the safety of your family. Mr. Sparky will install the best unit for your home.
Call 888-8-SPARKY.
Your on-time electrician, Mr. Sparky of the First Coast.
Start your new year off healthy and get screened at Ackerman Cancer Center with on-site imaging, including whole-body MRI, PET and CT scans, and mammography. Early detection is key. Visit AckermanCancerCenter.com.
Hey, this is David here with Royal Pest Services. Do you have that room in the house that is just too cold in the winter and just too hot in the summer? To learn about our pest-rated insulation, visit RoyalPestServices.com or call 886-2847.
New and pre-owned firearms are always in stock at Beach's Jewelry and Pawn in Jacksonville Beach. Want a new sidearm or rifle? Brands like Kimbar, Smith & Wesson, Sig Sauer, and Beretta. No lines, no hassle. Beach's Jewelry and Pawn in Jacks Beach.
For lost or broken keys or nearly any make and model of vehicle, call 722-1111 for
Instant Keys. Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
If your ride is making strange noises, don't wait and make it worse. Come to Action Transmission on Merrill Road. My expert technicians can diagnose the problem and likely fix it fast. Experience the difference at Action Transmission on Merrill Road.
Exciting news from Leonard in Jacksonville. Now stocking your favorite brands right here at Leonard. From truck accessories, toolboxes, hitches, carry-on trailers, and more. Grand opening on February 2nd at noon with free prizes. Don't miss it. Leonard Buildings and Truck Accessories. Your truck, your style.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Helmets and Heels, driven by Tire Outlet.
Brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans on 1010XL.
Couple segments to go here before we turn it over to Rick Ballou. We've got our highlights coming up right now. JJ, take it away.
Florida's Will Richard one-handed dunk versus Georgia early to make it 8-2.
And it off, Thomason trying to get loose top of the key. Another steal for Richard, 3-on-1 to pull it on the break, lob for the rim. Alley-oop dunk, tomahawk style, thrown down by Will Richard.
Nick Bosa with his second sack of the day on Jared Goff as Niners begin their comeback in the second half.
Formation, this time it's Dan Skipper who's eligible. On the fake. Pressure on Goff. He's in trouble, and Bosa's got his second sack of the day.
Iowa State seals the deal on an upset win over number 7 Kansas.
Here he comes. Shot clock winding down. Gilbert fires. Connects on a three.
Broken play. Waiting for Gilbert. Yeah, but Ref, I think this was the same play they wanted at the end of the half. Instead of throwing back to Momcilovic, Gilbert kept it.
So my highlight, I think most people could guess, came from the Florida-Georgia men's basketball game. That was Will Richard, who has had several really good games, although turned the ball over a few too many times against Georgia. But Florida was able to hold off Mike White's Georgia team and won in overtime. Were either of you watching live when the game was going on?
A little bit.
Okay.
Because I was calling the UNF game in a little bit, so I was like in and out.
Florida was up by 21 points in the second half. It really looked in the first half like they were going to run away with it. And then mistake after mistake after mistake. And Georgia came up big when they needed to, especially a guy who I had never heard of, Blue Kane, Mia. Blue Kane came up large. Also, R.J. Melendez for Georgia put up 35.
This like come off the bench. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Melendez comes off the bench. Blue Kane, I'm pretty sure, does too.
Yeah.
He sounds like he should be in a movie. Blue
Former
Kane.
Florida Mike White is in Georgia now.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh.
So when Mike White coached Florida, the men's he followed Billy Donovan. So those are hard shoes to fill, clearly. Yeah. But B, his offense oftentimes was very stagnant, and guys who would come in as fairly good shooters would get worse under his tutelage. Now, he's a really good defensive coach, so a lot of people speculated that he spent way too much time on defense and not enough time practicing shooting. Who knows in the end what really the thing was? A lot of people thought if Keontae Johnson never got had the heart issue, that Mike White is still the head coach of Florida, because Florida at that point would have made a really deep run, all these things. In the end, there was so much hatred towards Mike White in Gainesville. He has, I think it's 5 kids. And they would come home from school and be like, this little kid said this to me, and this little kid said, I know, really sad stuff. So eventually he and his wife were like, we can't live in Gainesville anymore. And he voluntarily quit his job and took a head coaching position in Athens.
In the same conference.
How has he been
at their rival?
How has he been at Georgia?
I would say mediocre. I mean, Georgia's not a very good basketball program, so fairly good for Georgia standards. But as far as like,
they're not making the tournament.
Yeah, but it's going to be hard for Georgia to do so.
When we said about the Jags with that low bar earlier
Georgia
in the
has a
program.
low bar.
Yeah, it's a very low bar to clear.
Okay.
But Tom Crean, who was extremely successful by many accounts at Indiana and Marquette, couldn't clear that bar at Georgia. He was able to bring in top recruits, Anthony Edwards among them, but never able to actually make the tournament and make a run and put together a team. And that's why for Mike White, he scheduled a pretty easy non-conference in his first year last year, and it was the first time they had 10 wins by the end of December in, like, school history. But then, of course, they got into league play, and, that's when reality kind of set in.
Yeah, and the SEC didn't used to care that much about men's basketball. But my thought process is they realized how much money they can make in men's basketball when the NCAA tournament and everything like that and March Madness. And so they've started putting more resources into it. Plus, they just have an overflowing amount of resources, so why not put it into something? But in the end, of course, like Georgia fans, if they're listening, are like, we don't care. We'd rather crush Florida in football. We don't care that much about men's basketball. But in the end, that's the story of Mike White. Okay. He and his family just did not want to live in Gainesville anymore. And I often wonder, I'm not saying Billy Napier is going to voluntarily leave his position and go to another school necessarily, but I have been wondering with all of the hot seat discussion surrounding Napier, like I wonder if his kids are feeling it at school, and I hope not, because I think that should be much more of an adult conversation, and people should be nice to each other in the grocery store and things like that. But at the end of the day, we know how fans are and how crazy they are.
Well, I remember back in 2020 maybe, when Bears fans were showing up to Matt Nagy's kids' football games, chanting, like yelling mean things at the kids and chanting "Fire Nagy," and I'm like, that's inappropriate.
Agreed.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, let's leave that for football games themselves.
So do you like Golden?
I like Golden. I've gotten to meet him since we've done the show down in Gainesville before the spring game the last couple of years, and he's come and sat with us both times. He's really smart, really basketball smart, but also just really smart, really personable. I think his scheme is great. I love all the three-pointers, and if he got some even better shooters, I think they'd be even more successful. So pretty much I really like him. I don't know if the way he's going to have to get guys out of the transfer portal year in and year out and have constant turnover. I don't know if that'll end up working, but that's the way it seems like a lot of college basketball is these days. And so far he's done a good job, but it's not like Florida's ranked in the top 25 either.
Yeah, you might need the guy from Austin P that we were talking about earlier. Just bring his whole team.
So I'm prepping for doing the JU game tomorrow night, and I'm looking at last year's meeting between the two, and I'm looking at the box score, and I'm looking at the players that scored for Austin P last year, and then I go to this year's roster, and one's not there, two's not there. I'm like, wait a second. They got a new head coach, right? I'm like, okay, so new head coach. Came from Northwestern State. There's 12 guys on a roster in college basketball. 6 of the members of the 12 scholarship player roster at Austin P this year came from Northwestern State with the coach. There is 1 player left from last year's team.
I wish I could say that surprises me, but it doesn't. Like, it's honestly way more surprising when after there's a coaching change that players stay. I mean, obviously we've seen it with Alabama going from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer in the football realm, but it's certainly in college basketball. There's just so much turnover. So, so I like Golden, but I think time will tell. Florida cares so much about football. Men's basketball certainly is second, but I don't know that Florida fans are like, oh, he's on the hot seat. Like, I don't get that sense, even though he and Napier were hired at the same time. I don't get the sense that the people are ready to fire him.
At the very least, he plays a more entertaining style of basketball than Mike White, and so that's kind of glossed over.
Yeah, I mean, when you're scoring mid-80s is kind of the average. Like, people love that. And the style of basketball, too. I mean, they are a lot bigger this year and more athletic, longer, and all that stuff. So when you watch, for instance, this game against Georgia, within the first few minutes, there's, I think, 4 dunks. Like, that didn't happen last year. And then, like I said, you got to make it from 3-2, and the free throws have needed to improve, but Florida was certainly better than Georgia at free throws. All right, Taylor, your highlight was from the 49ers game?
We talked about it earlier, but that was the second sack by Nick Bosa. And that's the moment where you really felt like things started to shift. I think it was still 21-7 or 24-7, something like that at that point. But from there on out, it was almost all Niners. And I think that when you look at plays like that, they almost go under the radar sometimes on how big those plays actually are, because they stop drives of possible moments where Lions could have scored again, and that would have put it out of range, most likely. And a play like that where Goff is losing 10 yards and, you're at that point, Niners get the ball back. And so I think plays like that are just, I love a good defense because that's all I've ever had in Chicago. And so I love it. But that's why I was trying to decide if I wanted to do that or if I wanted to do the Lamar reception zone, because that was just fun to me. But yeah, went with Bosa.
I like it. Mia, yours was a college basketball highlight.
Yes, Iowa State prevailing over Kansas. Bird, Ian Eagle on the call. I was catching up with him last night, one of his first ever trips to Iowa and the great state. And, of course, Ames, Lames, as some call it. But Hilton Magic is real, folks. Iowa State is now 7-0 in its last 7 home games against top 10 teams.
Wow.
That is absurd. I believe it's now up to 15 or 18 home winning streak. And that's something that we talk about with regards to Cameron Indoor. On the football side, we talk about it with Tuscaloosa, and it's at Ames, Iowa at Hilton Coliseum, and it's real and it's spectacular. And I don't really know how they're doing it. They've always had Kansas's number for whatever the reason when they play at Iowa State. It just has kind of been a trend of sorts. I don't know if Bill Self just combusts as soon as he sees Hickory Barbecue and then just is like, okay, we can throw this one. I'm just kidding. So it was a great game. Iowa State pretty much led wire to wire, but in that particular play, they did cut it to 2 with a minute to go, and then Iowa State hits a 3, and that's it. But what was also interesting, so it was Ian Eagle and then Bill Rafferty, of course, on the call, and the two of them will be a part of the Final Four broadcasting crew this year with Jim Nantz stepping back a little bit. But Jay Wright was also on the call with the two of them, and he's quickly moving up the rankings, I think, for, could he be a guy in the booth, a former coach of sorts, and it just brings to question Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, all the criticism of Tony Romo right now. And so I'm curious, y'all, you guys, your take on how we're why some former players and some former coaches were we need to put them in the booth, and others were you're washed, you don't know the game anymore.
It's interesting, and I had this conversation with you on yesterday about Tony Romo because I was out watching the game, so I didn't hear the play-by-play, but I was seeing everybody complain about Tony Romo on Twitter and on whatever social media. And so I was asking me, I was like, what exactly, was he just that bad? Or people just over the way he does it? And I remember when it first, those first couple years, and everyone's like, this is awesome because he's predicting plays, and he was telling you kind of what was happening right before it happened, and then it would work, and you were like, okay, this is kind of fun. But I had a feeling the farther he got away from football, the less he was going to be able to actually do that and connect, because obviously offenses are going to continue to change. So how much are we we're already seeing it, obviously, but in 10 years, is Tony Romo going to be able to do the same thing when he's not fresh out of the NFL? And I think it's like that for maybe in play-by-play in general. You see, I think, certain players at work because their style's a little different, but the way guys like Romo do it is that trying to connect with what's actually about to happen rather than just an analysis of why it happened.
Yeah, to me, he was just incredibly generic. And I used to really like him.
Yeah.
And whether he wants to predict the play or not, or just analyze it after it happens, I'm good with either way. But I would compare it to Greg Olsen and compare him to Greg Olsen. And there was a point in the 49ers Lions game where Greg Olsen was breaking down the special teams, and he was explaining why this line of people, these were the all blockers, and this line of people were all gunners. Mm-hmm. And there was a reason for that, and I wasn't paying close enough attention to remember it now, but I remember thinking in the moment, this is analysis that we don't normally get. That is how locked in and keyed in he is. And meanwhile, Romo, the quote that I keep joking about, the ball matters more in this game than in any other game, the football when Lamar Jackson fumbled. What are you talking about? A 4-year-old could come up with don't turn the ball over, right? And so that, to me at least, were my biggest takeaways is Romo seems to be coasting on the early success that he's had, and Olsen seems so incredibly dialed in.
Yeah, and I think that part of what has been lost is that camaraderie between Jim and Tony. And I think they're still golfing. I think they're still friends. So I'm not sure if it's Jim slowly pulling away from various responsibilities because he does want to spend more time with his family. I don't think so. I saw somebody say that I guess he did like a basketball game or he did golf or something like the day before or 2 days before or something like that. And like, we gave Jim a lot this week, or maybe it was said in jest. But you don't feel that same camaraderie of like, they're sitting with Tony and Jim at the bar anymore. Like, I don't know what happened. And that's where I think, to bring it back to the highlight, like, that's why people were going nuts over Jay Wright, because they were like, oh my God, it sounds like, this 2-time national championship coach is like sitting in my living room talking to me. And you have Rafferty, yelling in his like onions and like all his like funny quirks and stuff. But then you have Jay Wright, who's like the smooth operator of sorts.
And then like a mid-season basketball game, like that's the thing with this. We're on a conference championship game in the NFL of who's going to the Super Bowl, so you would expect a little more out of those ones. And if someone who's calling a mid-season college basketball game can give you that energy, you'd expect the best guys to do it.
Yeah, like I should walk away having learned something from them broadcasting, and I certainly felt like I did with Burkhart and Olsen. And that's the kind of sad part is now that team, it seems to be done, and Brady will step in. I'm not saying Brady won't be great. I'm sure he will be. But I feel like Olsen worked super hard to get to where he was, and now it's like, and you're demoted. Yeah. Well, there you go. By the way,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick while we're on basketball, Mia, you may know this name, but congratulations to Claire Coyle. She reached 1,000 points tonight as a Crusader. Bishop Kenny was playing against Parker, but again, congratulations to Claire Coyle on reaching 1,000 career points for Bishop Kenny. So way to go,
congratulations!
Claire. Absolutely.
This just reminded me of because you were just mentioning Tom Brady, and so he was on McAfee's show earlier today.
Has he taken over Aaron Rodgers' paycheck on that show?
Maybe. But they were talking about him starting for his NFL broadcast, but at one point in this, Tom Brady was talking about himself, and he was like, kind of going through his seasons of like the way things. He was like, I had a lot of championships, but there was also a lot of monies. I dealt a lot of moments where I didn't do the right things and I got injured or this happened and this happened. He was like, I didn't have just like this clear path story. Like things kind of went a very original way for me and blah, blah. He was like, I was an undrafted rookie. And I was like, no, you weren't.
You were drafted in the 6th round, bro.
Not undrafted. And I was listening to it. I'm like, did he? And I listened to it like 4 times. I was like, nope. He definitely said he was an undrafted rookie.
Oh, Tom. Maybe he does miss Giselle in his life, putting him in his place. All right, we've got one segment to go here on Helmets and Heels, driven by Tarotlet on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
There's a certain romance to radio play-by-play.
We need you to be all strong and hot.
Experience the most play-by-play sports on 1010XL.
Mike Dempsey here. Look, your fantasy football season might be over, but you can still win money playing fantasy sports on Underdog Fantasy with their Pick'em game. Just pick higher or lower on players' projected stats. They have a boatload of Pick'em contests to spice up the games. So act now, and you can win up to 100 times your money if all your picks hit. Underdog is so easy to play, even easier to get started, though. Just download their app, the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store, or visit UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up using promo code 1010XL. Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. They even give you a special pick of higher than 1/2 total yards to use on your first pick'em entry to get you started in the right direction. Look, you know I love daily fantasy sports. It's why I play at Underdog Fantasy, and there's no better time to make money on the biggest football game of them all than right now. Sign up using promo code 1010XL. You do have to be 18 or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
Get the appliances you need right away at Lowe's. Explore the largest assortment of brands you trust, like Whirlpool, Samsung, and LG, in-store or online at the best values. Plus, take advantage of our everyday financing offers on top items, from refrigerators to laundry pairs. And there's more. Get your new appliances delivered or installed quickly at your convenience. Because Lowe's knows appliances, Lowe's knows home improvement. Subject to credit approval.
Shield. Stop paying for paint that doesn't protect. Permanently protect your home while saving tens of thousands of dollars compared to repainting. Say goodbye to water damage, mold, and algae, and enjoy decades of defense against chipping, cracking, and peeling. Beautifully durable colors on any surface, all backed by our 25-year warranty. Shield now and pay later with 0% financing. Request your free quote today at rhinoshieldjax.com.
Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
In sports, the grind outside the lines is what ultimately defines our success. Get the amateur's edge, powered by B3 Better, to learn the hidden path of top pros, amateurs, and coaches. Saturday mornings at 11 on 1010XL.
Daly's Dash is not only your Jaguars game day stop, but a great place to grab a meal any day of the week. To honor the Jags and the fans, we've crafted the Duval Sub. The Duval comes with freshly sliced turkey, ham, melted cheddar, and habanero jack cheese, topped with crisp lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and a double portion of our secret sauce, all served on a fresh roll. Come by your local's Daly's Dash today to get your delicious Duval Sub. Daly's is the official convenience store sponsor of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Shen Yun shows are coming January 30th to 31st to Jacksonville Center for the Performing Arts. Shen Yun revives 5,000 years of civilization through choreographed dance, with music combining classical Western and Chinese instruments and dynamic 3D backdrop. Come see it at least once in your lifetime. January 30th through 31st. Tickets at shenyun.com/FL.
Are you a plumber looking to join a locally owned company that treats you like family? Do you have at least 3 years of residential plumbing service experience? Are you willing to do plumbing work only to the current code, do top-notch, over-the-top installations, and provide 5-star customer service daily? If so, we want to meet you. We are Duck Duck Rooter, one of the fastest growing plumbing companies in Florida. Send us your resume online at duckduckrooter.com and we will call you for an interview. Equal Opportunity Employer.
Hey folks, Hicken here. Now that your kids and grandkids have gone home and the decorations are coming down, I bet you can see it's time to get those carpets and sofas clean. I'm telling you, give Zero Res a try if you haven't already. They clean the carpet, the sofa, the chairs, the area rugs, and even the tile and grout. Google them. More than 5,000 5-star customer reviews. And right now, 20% off carpet cleanings, 20% off upholstery. Zero Res. You spell it forward, you spell it backwards. Zero Res. It's the right way to clean.
Zero Res.
Frank Franzi here for Stanley Pools. There's a reason so many of my friends and our listeners have had Stanley Pools build their pools and now maintain their pools, because Stanley Pools truly cares about their customers. Stanley Pools is locally owned and has been serving our community for 35 years. For all of your pool needs, call Stanley Pools at 269-7277. That's Stanley Pools, a family tradition of fine swimming pools. 269-7277, or find them online at stanleypoolsfl.com.
Hicken here. The Borland Groover Foundation proudly presents the annual March to Get Screened 5K race and 1-mile fun run. Sunday, April 14th. The race starts at 7 a.m. under the Fuller Warren Bridge. Their mission, raise awareness about colorectal cancer and related deaths. All proceeds benefit the Borland Groover Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization devoted to building a healthy and equitable community that is free from colon cancer. Visit BorlandGrooverFoundation.com for more.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Stilettos and sabermetrics.
Helmets and heels. Driven by Tire Outlet.
Brought to you by Underwood Jewelers.
And First Coast Lighting and Fans on 1010XL.
By the way, another shout out. This is not to a specific person, but as we sit here on January 30th, only one more day for all of those partaking in dry January, or not partaking, should I say.
Right, you made it.
This has felt like I did not do it, so I'm not speaking from
not you,
from me, but
whoever's listening and did it.
But for everyone who's listening and has made it, like, congratulations. January is a long month.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I can prove it to you. The Jaguars played a football game earlier this month. That feels like 3 months ago.
Yep.
And those poor people.
February's going to fly by, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though it's a leap year, so we have the extra day. But yeah, and so congratulations, like I said, to everyone who stayed committed. You're almost there. The end is very near, and you did it.
Yeah,
at least almost. Don't start drinking now. Wait till
it's kind of like when
this late.
When the Peloton instructor says you signed up for a 60-minute class, not a 56-minute class. It's like that.
See, the woman that I take the YouTube classes from online, whom I just love and I always rave about her, she always has this not always, but in her longer workouts, she'll say, hey, if you need to go, this is going to be a bonus circuit. But if you need to, if you need the shorter workout, if you have stuff to do, go ahead. You have my blessing, go on with your life. So she's way nice.
Oh, if you sign up for a 60-minute, you're doing all 60. You sign up for a Saturday 60, not a 45-minute workout.
Hey, I mean, sometimes we need that motivation. Yeah. All right, so Mia, what did you do this past Saturday with no football to watch?
Ooh, I called a college basketball game, was on the sidelines for the UNF women on Thursday and then on Saturday. So that
How did they do?
The Thursday game a little bit better than the Saturday game.
Okay.
Saturday game was about a 6-point ball game at the half. Really should have been a 1-possession game. I thought the basket counted at the buzzer from Jayla Adams. I thought that basket counted, and I was standing right there. But that's a story for another time. But unfortunately, Eastern Kentucky, or Bellarmine, Eastern Kentucky. They played Bellarmine on Thursday. One of the Kentucky schools ran away with it in the second half, unfortunately. And then on Thursday, it was Eastern Kentucky on Saturday. It was Bellarmine on Thursday because they were 0-5 in the ASUN, but 3 of their 5 losses were by like 2 points or less. And so, Erica Lambert, of course, friend of the program.
Absolutely.
She reminded me of that as well, so we need to have her on soon. She said, she's like, that's the last 0-5 team in America that we wanted to play. And so they came back. UNF led on Thursday night until the 3-minute mark in the ball game remaining in the fourth quarter, and that's when Bellarmine pulled ahead for good. And so a tough 0-2 week for the ladies. But yes, I did yoga in the morning, went to my yoga class, which my instructor was in person because she's moved now. So we do virtual yoga, but she was in town for teacher training.
Nice.
So we had an in-person class, which was great. And then
I have a friend who's a yoga teacher if you ever want another in-person yoga teacher.
Love it. So, drove to UNF.
And she's an Iowa State fan.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, well, listen.
I should warn you.
She's probably very excited with Brock Purdy right now.
Absolutely.
So drove to UNF, did a yoga class, went home, drove back to UNF, did a basketball game. I had dinner with some friends, which was fun. And, and then Sunday was the real, chill, enjoy. This is why we live in Florida. I don't know about you, but we got a 7-mile walk in on Sunday because we got home from golfing and we're like, well, we still got 2 hours before football, so gotta.
The weather was gorgeous.
Embrace
on both days.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. A little windy on Sunday, but definitely really nice and warm on Saturday. Taylor, you went on a boat?
I did. I was on the boat Saturday, so that was.
Did you say I'm on a boat at any point in time?
Probably. We didn't sing it. I don't think so. It was actually a little bit of an extra adventure, because it was the first time that it's my best friend's family's boat. First time they've taken it out since November, because obviously it's been a little chillier. And so one of the wires or something got corroded from sitting. Oh, and it was something to do with I'm not a professional at this. Something to do with the gear and something else. So we were going to Palm Valley Outdoors. I mean, we were 5 feet away, and the boat just stopped, just turned off and shut off. So what ended up happening was it got stuck between 2 gears because that cord got stuck. And so we ended up fixing it because one of my friend's dads has a couple boats and is good with, he's had to fix certain things, and I guess had to deal with this particular.
So you just floated into the dock?
No, it honestly was a little sketchy for a minute because when it stopped, we couldn't do anything. So, and it's a pontoon boat, it's bigger. Not like we could just start rowing like a smaller boat. And so it starts floating, and we're floating towards a person's dock because there's a house right to the left of it. And so we start floating towards that, and we were all like, oh no, we're going to crash. Luckily, there was one of the no wake signs that have, obviously the bottom's big wood pole technically. And so we ended up just floating right by that enough to where they could wrap a rope around it. And we just kind of tied ourselves to that until we figured out the issue.
Okay.
Which it wasn't super long, honestly. We called our friend's dad, FaceTimed them, and within probably 30 minutes they had figured it. And it was just us holding the phone up and being like, this is what the gear's doing, this is what this.
Thank goodness for FaceTime.
I know.
Yeah.
And so we ended up figuring it out. So then we still went over to Palm Valley 8, got back on the boat. But then when we got back on the boat, we thought everything was fixed and fine, so we're going, but then all of a sudden the boat, we're going normal speed, which it's a pontoon, so you're not going fast, but it's usually 20,
really
25. Yeah, it's usually 20, 25 when you're cruising, and so it started there and went to 13, and then it was 9, and then 7, and so Rachel, who was driving the boat, was like, something's wrong, something's still not fixed. So we think that because of that cord or whatever, it's going to have to be replaced. Like we fixed it, wiggled it enough because that's what they had to do was like wiggle it enough because it got jammed. So I think that needs to be replaced. But we could only go like 8 miles per hour all the way home. Luckily, it was perfect outside. So I was like, I have my drinks. I had boiled peanuts. I had sunshine. I'm good. Like I'm just hanging out.
Boiled peanuts are the absolute best. I got some boiled peanuts at a produce stand called the County Line on Sunday when we were coming back from Salt Springs, and they are just delectable. One time we were on a boat. This was a family member's boat. We were scalloping, and the engine just cut off. And we're like, what the heck? That's not good, right? And out there, especially too in the summertime, can be storms that pop up. Long story short, my mom's cousin got the engine cover off. There was a bird's nest because the boat had been sitting for long enough. An entire bird's nest under the cover of the engine. And so in order to get going, we had to release the bird's nest.
Oh, my gosh.
But we were able to find a spot for that, and then we were able to get going. But there's so many different things. That's the tricky part about especially saltwater or brackish water, which we have here. It's hard to keep the boat in really good shape all the time because, you don't use it for a while, and then it does get that salt in the motor and things like that, which is why you're always supposed to rinse it out. I have never, wanted to own a boat as an adult for those reasons, I feel like, because there's so many things that can go wrong. But it was a gorgeous day, so I'm glad you got to go on the boat. And y'all already heard, I went down to my friend's place in Salt Springs and had a good time. We just relaxed, had quesadillas, and then we went to Cactus Jack's.
There we go.
And I asked them, I was like, is there food at this place? And besides the band? And they were like, yes. One time we were there, and they had a buffet of frog legs. And I was like, I'm sorry, I will not be eating those. They're like, you've never had frog legs? You've got to try them. I was like, okay, no. The answer's still no. And I was like, this place has a buffet? Like, to JJ's point earlier, like, it's like in the forest kind of thing. Like, I'm very confused.
This is fascinating.
I know.
I want to go now.
And it was really fun. But she was like, well, the buffet is really just like aluminum pans filled with frog legs. I was like, okay, I've learned so much.
I always like that. It has to be the tiniest amount of meat.
Yeah, that's what I guess. Like bullfrogs, like really large bullfrogs have decent. I don't know. It sounded gross to me
because I hear about it and people are like, every time I've talked to someone, they're like, it doesn't taste bad, but you just don't get much out of it. But I guess that's kind of like a crab leg too. If you just get like snow crab, which I love. It's a lot of work for a little bit, but delicious.
Crab,
so if you love it, it's maybe worth it.
Yeah, like stone crab, king crab, those are definitely worth it. But like blue crabs and the like. All right, let's say hello to Rick Ballou.
Now, the 2-minute drill, brought to you by Tire Outlet. Tire Outlet is now hiring. Visit tireoutlet.com/careers. Equal opportunity employer.
Rick, what did you do on Saturday with your no football day? Didn't you play golf?
Saturday, it was a big golf tournament. There's 28 of us over at Cimarron. Yeah, it was a fun time. It really was. So, and it was one of the best weather days of the year.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
Absolutely insane.
Sunday, too. Sunday was elite.
Yeah, Sunday was a football day, but Saturday was just incredible. I hoping to be that way again this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be quite as warm, but either way. How did you play?
I played pretty well. I played best ball. And early on, I played well, but I've got this. I don't know what I got. I got the vertigo or something that I've seen every doctor in Jacksonville trying to figure out what's going on. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's not a headache. It's just dizziness and lightheadedness, and it comes on quite a bit. But I noticed that after I drank a 12-pack on the front nine, to see the ball
on the front nine,
to see the ball on the back nine became pretty difficult for me.
I can understand that.
So, but I think we were 14 under.
Okay. All right.
In a best ball tournament. And Cimarron's done an unbelievable job. They've really improved everything there, tee to green, and that new clubhouse, indoors, outdoors. They had a band there. They had the fire pits going. So it ended up being a really good Saturday. No doubt about it. I had a fun day.
You just had a one-eye at the back nine?
Yeah.
He had most of it on the front nine there.
But it was a good time.
I got my bad round of golf out for the month, so if you need an extra, just let me know.
Okay.
Played Sunday at Palm Valley after shooting arguably my best round of the last 2 years up in St. Simons over New Year's. And I was like,
par threes?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a beautiful par 3 on Jekyll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I went to had played that well. I mean, that's more of a par. It's a 9-holer, but that one's more like par 4, par 5.
No doubt.
But yeah, played the par 3 this weekend, and I don't know if it was that rain from early morning on Sunday or the wind or what, but yeah, that's we got the bad one out of the way, Rick. So
there you go.
Now I'm ready. So let me know.
A bad one
I'm in
on the golf
bullpen.
course, though, is better than not playing at all.
Ain't that the truth?
So no doubt about that. And a lot of people actually think golf begins this week with Pebble Beach. A lot of people really tune into that Pro-Am, and even though we just went through a couple of California courses now in Northern California, this is where, for a lot of golf fans, this is where it really begins. So I love Pebble. It's a phenomenal tournament.
I do too.
Weather's always a concern out there.
That's true. Speaking of something else that opens, we didn't talk about this, but are you a NASCAR fan?
I went and I had them fooled in Chicago, where I would come back every year to cover the Daytona 500, and I was there when Dale won. I was there when Dale died.
Mm-hmm.
I think I covered, and then when my relationship with Miller Lite, pre-COVID, every year they had a tent right behind pit road. It was just incredible. And so I bet I've been to 25 Daytona 500s in my life, but I've kind of fallen off the last couple of years. I don't know why, but I was talking about the other day, I was looking at the first couple of rows, and I didn't even recognize the drivers, and that's incredible to me. But no, to be honest, I've kind of fallen on the wayside for the sport.
Okay. Well, what will you be watching this upcoming weekend then?
Let's see. We got the always the entertaining, bizarre NHL hockey weekend now, with all those different pods and everything they do, instead of just keeping it the way it wants to be.
In-season tournament?
Yeah, it's like 11 skaters, per team, and shorter periods, and then you advance to another round. And I always thought the skill position contest was the best thing in the NHL. But I used to love the old games because no one played defense, and the goaltenders would get peppered. It'd be like an 18-16 hockey game, But just to watch them with their incredible athleticism was kind of cool. So I don't really have anything planned sports-wise. I kind of hope the weather can be somewhat close to what it was last week, so I can get back out and play some golf.
All right, there you go. What's coming up tonight, Rick?
We got a lot of good stuff tonight. I was going to talk about it all day, but I just see it did come in now. It is official. Tom Brady is taking over the number one spot. It was expected. I mean, you're paying the guy, $37.5 million a year, so he's going to join Kevin Burkhardt. But I think we're in a real interesting time right now where we have phenomenal play-by-play men. Maybe the best that we've ever seen. But there seems like there are so many complaints with the color analysts. So I kind of want to dive into that tonight. We always have great listeners here after you on Tuesday. We'll get their opinion on it as well. So we'll kick it off with a little bit of television broadcasting.
Sounds good. We'll be listening.
All
Thanks,
right,
Rick.
thank you.
Who doesn't love talking sports media? I know I do. I'm going to be listening.
Absolutely. For Taylor Dahl, from me, O'Brien, for JJ Silva, I'm Lauren Brooks. Don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on 1010X 2.5 FM for Into the Night with Rick Ballou.
He's 1010XL's radio road grader.